Welcome, everyone, to the very first Talking Cardboard podcast episode. My name is Nick, and I'm here alongside with Cory.
Hello.
And John.
How's it going?
And we are also going to be posting this recording on our YouTube channel, where you'll then be able to see our wonderful faces, which is subjective. Maybe you guys won't think they're so wonderful. We all think we have wonderful faces. So if you're more of a visual person, definitely check out our Talking Cardboard YouTube channel, where we will be posting this podcast episode in addition to a lot of other board game related videos. So without further ado, let's start talking about cardboard, or shall I say board games. All right. Bob the head, John. All right, so I would be remiss if I didn't mention this is our third take with this podcast episode, so hopefully this one, third time is the charm. And before we actually talk about board games, I do want to mention, although 99% of my mental energy is dedicated to board game related thoughts, we do have other lives, or other interests in our lives, or other things that we do besides board gaming. So we figured we'd start talking about some general life updates, and the biggest thing that I have been experiencing is the birth of my first child. Happened to be a daughter. Her name's Faye, and so far everything's been great. She's perfectly healthy, and unfortunately, the sad part is I'm on my last week of my paternity leave, so that's unfortunate, but definitely appreciate the time I have had with her so far, and look forward to seeing her grow up and hopefully be a big fan of the board game hobby. Already have a bunch of hobby games in her nursery ready to be played once she is able to at least utter a few words and start crawling.
I think it's Nick's new trick in order to buy board games and justify it. Say they're for Faye when she's older.
Maybe actually get those ones played.
And maybe.
Maybe.
That's
in 5 to 10 years.
And we'll see. You guys, I'm gonna have to go on some sort of plan. But with that said, Cory, what about you? What are any updates in your life?
Let's see here. Outside of work life, I'm going to throw in a curveball here. I've been actually picking up the guitar again recently, which I haven't done for like almost 15 years. So that's been really fun to start playing guitar again, having fun with that. Playing some board games with my 4.5-year-old daughter. It's really fun to see her start to understand more concepts with that and really have fun with them. And, with Vay too, with yourself as and Braden as they get older, it's a really fun thing to see them kind of grow into human beings and being able to understand that sort of thing. So that's been a lot of fun. But outside of that stuff, just helping run the YouTube channel and now doing this podcast. So that's about it.
And you, John?
My life's pretty routine. No big changes. Just go to work, which is the same, and take care of Braden and hang out with him after work every day, and relax at night, which usually just means some video games. So that's about it.
Or doing work on a podcast.
Yes.
All right. So with that said, let's get into actually talking about some cardboard, or shall I say some board games, with our first, we'll say, segment, and that is what have we been playing board game wise over the last few weeks. And first we'll talk about board games we played as a group, starting with Spirit Island, which I've had in my collection now for a long time. It's been collecting dust. I've not been able to get it to the table, but thankfully Cory came to my rescue the other day, and he is already a big fan of this game, knows how to play it, and was able to help me get my copy to the table. And John also was able to play the game with us. So, Cory, what kind of makes you so excited about Spirit Island, and why is it one of your more enjoyed games?
Spirit Island, just fantastic. It's one of those games, oddly enough, that John and I, when we first played it a few years back, it kind of went over our heads. It's got a heavy rule set to it, a lot going on, and ultimately we sold the game, got rid of it, and then got the game back a few years later after our brains became a little bit more seasoned to the board game hobby itself. Similarly with Root, the same thing happened with that game as well. But yeah, it's just so many things to explore in Spirit Island. I played a lot solo, which is a lot of fun, but it was a lot of fun to get more than one player to the table playing it as well. Playing at 2 or 3 players is just fantastic. I think playing it at 4 gets a little bit long, but it was a lot of fun to play any player count above 1 to get to see the dynamic between the spirits and the combos you can do with one another, and it really feeling like an overall big cooperative experience. Trying to take down the colonizers and that sort of thing. Every game is different. Every game is extremely difficult, hard to win, which is fun too, because when you do overcome and come to victory, it's a lot of fun. But yeah, really glad I got to teach the game to you now for the first time, and hopefully you enjoyed it enough to where we can get it to the table more and check out more of the spirits and how the game differs in that way too. So,
yeah, John, what were your quick thoughts on Spirit Island?
I like being a spirit that causes fear or aggression. I find that to be an interesting play style. One's more supporty and indirect, like taking out the colonizers, and one's pretty much, obviously aggressive. Just go ham and force those guys out of your island. Lot of replayability in the box. That's usually pretty big to me. And the theme just kind of wraps together nicely. So fun game. But like Cory said, definitely time commitment involved, especially if you don't play a lot of games.
Yeah.
Kind of get a feel for how it works and plays. But overall, fun game.
So the next game that we just played the other day was called Moonrakers, and this was brought to us by John's brother Blake. And
I mean, Cory's brother Blake.
Sorry, Cory's brother Blake. I'm trying to do too many things at once. Like, still new to podcasting.
Yeah. Huh? Same age as John's brother, though.
Same. So that's why I was confused. But Moonrakers, simply put, a space-themed deck-building game where I got the impression you're racing. I don't know if that's the appropriate description of what we were doing in the game, but
I feel like it's more your mercenaries, essentially, trying to explore or bounty hunt or, complete cargo deliveries. I mean, those are the name of the task cards you're going out on, so I guess that's the way I look at it. But in a sense, I guess you're racing up to what point?
To 10 points. Yeah, the theme is kind of non-existent, but yeah. The game shines other than that. A lot of negotiation in it. A lot of negotiation, which was fun. Don't play a whole lot of negotiation games.
Right. No, not at all. I did like that aspect, although I will say it is not new player friendly if 3 people have played the game and 1 has not.
Yeah, I can attest to that.
Yeah.
A little bit difficult because that person, I think, gets a little left out, not really knowing what they're doing. And yeah, the other 3 can kind of just wheel and deal like the back of their hand. But speaking for myself, this game was a surprise hit. Like, holy cow, was I blown away by this game. And when we first pulled it out at Nick's house the other night too, like, I wasn't really thinking much of it. I thought it was just going to be like a light, throw some cards down with certain symbols to complete these missions for points. But the negotiation side of it really made the game what it is.
It takes a nice twist on deck builders, and the negotiation, like you said, makes it really interesting, especially since you can use other players' turns to essentially throw a bad hand away and get something stronger for when your turn comes around.
Yeah,
to win yourself some more victory points.
That's definitely one of the things I think that helped me enjoy this game was the fact that essentially every turn was your turn. That's how I felt.
Right.
Like
it's more interactive than a full deck builder.
Yeah, and that makes it so it's a 4-player game, or it can go up to 5, I guess. And a lot of times in most games, if it's not your turn, you're not really doing anything. But in this game, you're actively invested in whoever's turn it is, because you're able to contribute your cards to a mission and reap the rewards of that mission, almost potentially, depending on how good of a negotiator you are, get more rewards from that player's mission than the player's turn themselves. If you have a lot you can contribute and can convince whoever that, hey, I can help out a lot, but I want a lot. So I thought that was kind of a cool aspect of this game.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know the game or who haven't played the game, in Moonrakers, it is a light deck builder where you're basically just trying to gather these different symbols of cards to your deck and to your hand, and use those cards for those symbols to complete missions. But a lot of the missions have so many symbol requirements on it that you can't solo them very often. So you have to ask for help from others. And what makes the game really unique is that the rewards on the card are completely negotiable. So you can negotiate out of like the 3 victory points on the card. Hey, I'll take 2 of them. I'll give you 1 of the victory points, and you can have all the money. As long as you help me out. And if you both complete the mission, you get the rewards that you both negotiated over before the mission started. There's also these like danger dice that you're rolling too, and you can negotiate over those, which I thought was really cool. Like if that was one thing you could not negotiate over, I don't think the game would be nearly as fun, because that's a huge element to where you're rolling these danger dice, and if you can't soak up the danger symbols that you roll with shield cards, for every symbol you can't shield, you're taking negative victory points for each of the symbols. And it's a very tight game. It's a race to 10 points. So 1 or 2 victory points is a huge swing. So yeah, some of that rolling the dice to see what happens, and knowing that you only have 1 shield and you could roll two danger symbols, and just kind of that tension. You can really feel that tension in the game.
All right, so let's get moving on to the other game that we played the other night, which was Cory's
Cuba Libre.
Cuba Libre.
Libre.
It's been on the Talking Cardboard radar for I think since 1962, since the Bay of Pig Invasion.
I was born. Yeah.
The
day I was born.
So what makes Cuba Libre stand out is it is one of the coin games, Volume 2 specifically, in the coin series, which stands for Counterinsurgency Game, and from GMT, the publisher. In a lot of these coin games play very similarly, where you're drawing a card every game turn essentially, and that card will spell out the player order, as well as an important event that a player can choose to use, or instead of taking the event, just doing an action that's unique to their faction, which is another big part of this game, is that every faction in Cuba Libre, it's a 4-player game, is completely asymmetric from the other. Each has also then not only different actions, but then different victory objectives. And it's highly historical. There's a lot. If you're a big history buff, then this is definitely a type of game you might enjoy, especially if you know a lot about the Cuba Missile Crisis / I guess I don't know what I would classify the whole conflict.
The Cuban Revolution, man.
Cuban Revolution.
That's what
I'm trying to illustrate the fact I don't know much about this point in our history, but I think we all, like, by playing this game, realize, hey, we felt like, hey, we should learn more.
Oh, I watched a documentary when I got home, so I did my homework.
Yeah, well, there you go. Like, yeah, Cory, what were your kind of thoughts on the game now that we finally got to play it? Kind of play it. We got through half a game.
Yeah, similar feeling with me too. I sought out some books that are on the subject for other coin series games as well, and just anytime you play like a coin series game, even when we played the All Bridges Burning one, whatever the historical event is, it just makes you want to learn more about it, because it is just that so so involved, and it really throws you into the storyline of what happened in history. And I'm not even a really big history buff, or never really cared too much about it in school, for example. But anytime we play a coin series game, it just makes me interested in it immediately. And with Cuba Libre, like you said, all the coin series systems are very similar mechanically. So it was fun to kind of jump back into that system again and kind of relearn it, so that if we jumped into any other theme in the coin series, we could pretty much just off to the races and already kind of know what we're doing. So you don't have to relearn a ton of rules for a second or third time, which is really cool. And like I said, as soon as John said when he got home, he, was watching some history on it. But as soon as I got home, I immediately sought after some other games in the coin series of games, because I'm just that interested in diving into other themes on it too. So had a lot of fun.
All right, so now we'll just skip or jump to games that we've enjoyed on our own time or with others, that didn't include each other. And for me, the first game I wanted to bring up is Pandemic Legacy Season 1, and just want to quick put out a spoiler alert here.
Red alert.
That's a sound effect going on right now for John and Cory. But so if you haven't played Pandemic Season 1, it's a legacy game, so definitely maybe tune out for a minute as I maybe provide a few spoilers here. But I've been playing this game with my wife. We're now to the beginning of March, and so far, if you don't care about spoilers and you're familiar with Pandemic, then this is essentially Pandemic with a lot of different legacy mechanics where the game state's changing from game to game, and you're playing through a full year essentially. And so far I've enjoyed the experience. Like, it's there is a little bit of a story to it that's been fun. It's interesting because I feel like they want you to try the different characters that get introduced, but you also feel like you want to stick with the characters that you started the game with. So that's kind of what my wife and I are dealing with right now. Like, okay, now there's all these new characters being thrown at us. Like, do we switch to these new characters, or just continue with the ones we started with until they potentially die? But other than that, I definitely have enjoyed the experience so far. And another game that I have on the table behind me, and Cory kind of alluded to as well, is one of the other coin games. This one is the Liberty or Death coin game, also by, of course, GMT, and simulating
Revolutionary War.
Revolutionary War, yeah. And this one, I would say, immediately I find a little more appealing than Cuba Libre, simply because I understand what's going on more than Cuba Libre. Like, Cuba Libre, oh, there's casinos. Like, what the heck does casinos have to do with anything? Like, I feel like, I'm sure some people are like, what do you mean? Like, that was such a big deal. But for me, not knowing anything about that time period, I didn't really have much meaning and therefore, it was from a gameplay perspective, it was hard to really connect the mechanics to that aspect of that historical conflict but with the American Revolution, I understood more the nuance of the relationships between the French and the United States and the Indians and the British, and the fact that you had the Tories. And so far I've been trying to kind of grok through playing the game solitaire with the bots, but yeah, there's also a lot of strong similarities between Liberty or Death and Cuba Libre for some of the actions. They're almost verbatim the same, except with swapping out, the different types of names for the units and what the discs represent, that sort of thing.
Right.
So, and then real quick, I want to point out, I haven't gotten them to the table sufficiently yet, but Draco Ideas, a publisher out in Spain, was kind enough to send me a few of their games to try out. 1212 Las Navas de Toloso is a 2-player kind of tactical light war game that looks fantastic. I think it's asymmetric, so each side does have slightly different capabilities, but it looks like a quick and portable game. Then we have Tetrakia. Yeah, Tetrakia. Pretty sure I'm pronouncing that right. Which is essentially Pandemic Rome, but I think this was designed before Pandemic Rome was designed. So if anything, this was the predecessor to Pandemic Rome, based on my little research. Nonetheless, it's a cooperative game where you're acting as 4 different Roman generals trying to protect the empire. And then finally, this Nexus Galaxy game, which is a very, very light 4X style space game. So if Twilight Imperium scares the hell out of you, but you still really like the idea of a 4X space game, then you might be interested in this Nexum Galaxy. And it says it does come with like a AI system, so you can play it apparently cooperatively or solitaire. So I definitely want to get all 3 of these to the table. Thank you, Draco, for your generosity. And also already on our YouTube channel, I've played a couple different games from Draco with the designer via Tabletop Simulator. So please check out those videos if those games sound interesting, and if you are more into combat-oriented games, since that's kind of a big focus, I would say, in general for Draco. So enough of enough of my banter. Cory, any games you wanted to talk about that you've gotten to the table over the last week or so?
Yeah, I'll spit out a couple here. Masters of the Galaxy, another really, really, really light 4X game that John has actually played with me a couple times, played it a couple times with my brother as well. But another surprise hit for me, really fun. A light bag builder where you're just building your bag with different colored cubes and then pulling cubes out of the bag to, fulfill missions or try to colonize different planets and use the cubes to transport yourself to these different planets, and a few different win conditions that you're going after in the game. Very light, very quick, and very surprising, because this game got a lot of mixed reviews where you either love it or hate it, from what I've seen online, and I really was surprised and really liked the game. Another, obviously, some of the other games we had mentioned, I've gotten to the table myself as well. Like Spirit Island, gotten that to the table solo again. But I just want to go over maybe another big surprise hit to me, and then one game I want to explore more, and I'll be done with this segment. But starting with the game that was a surprise hit to me, it's Adventureland, and it is by Haba Games. And I guess that's the reason why it's the most surprising, is because this, Haba is known for kids games, but this is more in their adult lineup of games. So they have a few of them that they've released, over the last few years. And this one is super, super light, but really fun for adults. But I can see as my daughters get a little bit older, them enjoying that as well. But pretty much there's one of 2 actions you can do on your turn. You can either flip a couple cards to reseed the board with more tokens, or you can simply move a couple meeples to pick up the tokens. And essentially you're trying to get either more attack power or gather herbs to help protect yourself in combat. You can go and land on different monsters. There's another element where you're trying to take over area control on these castles on the board, kind of like, I don't know, in Carcassonne or something, where you're just within these little boundaries of castles. And it comes with a bunch of different missions, so you can choose what mission you want to try at the start of the game, and that'll have a different win condition every time. So the game plays similarly each time, but the win conditions make it variable. But yeah, a surprise hit for me. And a game that wasn't quite a hit, but one that I really want to explore more. Unfortunately, I was hoping to like it more the first play, but let me grab the game here. And that is this big guy here, Vindication.
That game that's been sitting on your top shelf for like a year.
Yeah, it's been sitting for a
every
while.
time.
Yep, it's a Kickstarter only game, so I backed like the 3rd printing of Kickstarter on it, and finally got it in the mail, or the 2nd printing or whatever. It finally got in the mail after waiting a couple of years on it, and super excited about it. A Euro game through and through, kind of a cube pusher where you're going to these different locations and converting cubes into other cubes and using those to gain magical powers and do different things with that. And there is some theme thrown into it, but it just, I want to explore it more because the first time I tried it, I only tried it 2-player, and I feel like it might be more fun and a little bit more tense with other players, more than 2 players, where you're fighting over these different zones a little more, these different worker placement areas. But it's got some worker placement and some traveling to do different actions, and then, like I said, it's a lot of like trying to convert cubes into other things to gain yourself some unique powers to then try to get points that way. So a lot going on, and one that I hope I'm gonna like with more plays. I'm gonna give it a few more plays before I make a final decision on it. But a lot of people give this game a 10 out of 10. One of the best games ever.
Wow.
From a lot of the reviews I've seen. But for me, I'm not quite sold on it yet. So
in typical Talking Cardboard fashion, we will probably give it a 3 out of 10, and then get roasted.
Probably get roasted and then sell the game and get it back in a couple years. And really
exactly. Try it again later.
But that's why I said I'm going to give it a few more plays before making any decisions. But yeah, it wasn't bad so far. So that's what I've been doing.
Thanks, Cory. And John, what about you?
Haven't really played much outside of what we as a group and some games with Cory and his brother that already got mentioned here. Really the only thing I've done elsewise is play Magic the Gathering, and that should really be no surprise to anyone. I have a pretty steady group of guys that plays Commander probably every other weekend, if not almost every weekend as well. So, yeah, been doing that. Made some updates to some of my Lord of the Rings themed decks and got those to the table, and yeah, saw what they could do. So good times.
Nice.
Yeah, you were trying out the Lord of the Rings Magic, right?
Yep. Yeah, updated the Eowyn Human Knights deck, and also the Frodo and Samwise food token decks to make those a little more powerful.
Do you feel like it's gameplay wise much different than normal Magic?
Oh no, they took a lot of mechanics that already exist within the game and just themed it around, Lord of the Rings characters and events, and I think they did a really good job with it, making the characters feel thematic and whatnot. So
okay,
cool.
Well, there we go. What we've been playing, and let's move on to our next segment, which will be reviewing the current status or the current BGG Top 10 Hotness List. Just give our own thoughts as to the games that are currently on that list. So let's take a quick peek. Yeah, I'll just spit them out for the sake of time. I'll just spit out the current top 10. So starting with number 10, we have Planet Unknown. 9 is Marvel Dagger, or Dagger apparently. 8 is Dune Imperium. 7 is Earth. 6 is Ark Nova. 5 is Heat Pedal to the Metal. 4 is The Witcher Old World. 3 is Cyclades Legendary Edition. 2 is Mr. President, the American presidency from 2001 to 2020. And number 1 is Barcelona. Now, the goal would be to kind of, moving forward after this very first segment of going over the top 10, will be to kind of discuss the changes to the list week after week, and talk about the new games that are added to the list and the ones that have fallen off. But for this first time, we'll maybe talk briefly about some of the games. The ones that intrigue me the most are definitely Mr. President, which I see a ton of posts about Mr. President on my solo board game Facebook groups, because I don't know if it's supposed to only be played solitaire. It is a solitaire only game. Yep. Which simulates you as being the president, and it looks insanely crunchy, which is pretty par for the course with GMT games, but nonetheless, it looks like a monster of a game. Looking at the BGG page, it says playtime from 360 minutes to 600 minutes, and that seems thematic to the fact that you're running a whole country. So that
it's like I do in real life every day.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And so the other game that I was gonna that's
and the playtime is 4 years too, so it's very thematic.
Yeah.
4 years to play.
Basically, I think that's how that math works. The other game that caught my attention was Marvel Dagger. I haven't really watched a lot of videos or anything about this, but I saw it described as a Marvel reskin of the Eldritch Horror board game, and I have played Eldritch Horror from Fantasy Flight, and essentially that's a cooperative game where you're a character and you're going about trying to stop bad things from happening, and it sounds like that's essentially what you're doing in Marvel Dagger, but with a Marvel theme to it. And I think the theme of Eldritch Horror kind of like, I'm not a huge Cthulhu person, so when I played Eldritch Horror with my friends, I don't think it was a little difficult to get into for that reason. But with Marvel Dagger, I would say I'm more of a Marvel fan than Cthulhu, so I would like to try this maybe at some point. Not sure I would ever go out and buy it immediately by any means. With that said, Cory, any of the games that I mentioned in the top 10 that excite you or that you wanted to touch on?
Well, there's some
surprises on my games. That's all I know.
You can go first. What games do you want to touch on?
There's two good ones I really wanted to talk about on. Probably should have had director's notes on this. But first off, gotta mention it. Glad I'm still seeing it on here. Number 8, we've got Dune Imperium. Probably, well, no, spoiler. Favorite game of all time for me. And definitely a top favorite of the Talking Cardboard group in general. So good to see that holding strong.
Surprising it's still on there after all these years.
Right. And then another game that we were kind of in on some of the stuff early on that is also surprising to me is number 10, Planet Unknown. We actually played this with the developers back the first year of COVID and work from home and all that fun stuff. It was like the first game I probably ever played on TS, so that was pretty cool. I know Cory actually owns the game, but we haven't got it to the table a ton, which I think is definitely a disservice to the game. I know I've had a great time with that one. It's tile placement, so up my alley, and I'm sure Cory would talk about it more about the rondelle and how all that works. Pretty unique to tile placement games. So, two really, really great games that I'm both surprised are hanging in there and popped up. So,
yeah, definitely. And then looking at numbers 6 and 7, those, it's kind of funny to see those not only on here, but in the places that they're in, because people have been going crazy about Earth, saying that it's an Ark Nova killer, like an Ark Nova replacement. It plays just like Ark Nova, supposedly, and it plays in like a fourth of the time, so you can get it done in like 45 minutes or something like that. But I've heard mixed reviews on that as well, where people have mostly loved the game, but there have been people that say, yeah, it's kind of like Ark Nova, and I'll only ever play Earth and never Ark Nova again. And then there's other people that say it's not anywhere close to the same game, and I'm going to own both in my collection. So I'm not running out and buying Earth or that sort of thing, but if I do see somebody have it, or go to a convention and somebody's playing it, I would be interested to sit down and try it. Obviously, Ark Nova number 6, we own that. It's in the Talking Cardboard collection. One that we want to table more here soon. But yeah, definitely heavier, longer, crunchy. But yeah, there's just, even in this top 5, there's a whole lot going on. It's pretty funny that the only one I don't really know anything about is the number 1 game,
right?
So I'm going to look more into that, but yeah, The Witcher looked really cool to me, and unfortunately that's getting mixed reviews as well, and it takes a long time to play, so probably not going to pick that one up. And the miniatures version to The Witcher, unfortunately, is like $200, so that's kind of a turnoff as well. And just the base game, or the basic version, is $100. So I'm not going to go out and test my luck on it if it's getting mixed reviews. I'll kind of wait to see how that pans out. Heat, Pedal to the Metal. I've been wanting to get that game forever, but it's been out of print since the moment it hit store shelves. And that's the new craze and racing game, deck building with racing. And, the faster you're going around the corners, the more bad cards you're adding to your deck, and it's really wearing your car down. And I guess it's just a lot of fun and recreates the high intensity speed of an actual race. And yeah, been hearing great things about that. Obviously, Nick touched on Mr. President. I have looked at that a little bit too. Kind of scares me it being a four-year long game to play. But beside the point. And then, yeah, I guess the game I'm really excited about is the Cyclades Legendary Edition at number 3 on the hotness. It is on Kickstarter right now. It's got like 35 days remaining from the time of this recording. And I'm very, very close to backing it. I think I probably will. I own the first version of Cyclades, and from what I hear and from what I'm reading here, the new Legendary Edition does add some really cool things to it. It adds different modes of gameplay. It adds team play where 4 to 6 players can play on teams of 2 with each other. So that sounds kind of interesting. The game board is all modular tiles now instead of just one static board, which is fun.
Definitely like that. Yeah, give it some replayability and variability.
Yep. Now there's 6 gods instead of 5, so that adds variability with each game too, and just a whole lot of other things going on. You can like add mercenaries to your group, and obviously the update in the artwork and miniatures and that sort of thing. The miniatures pledge is only €120, so it's not too bad. Comes with all the stretch goals and miniatures and cities miniatures, and they also streamlined it in a way to where it's a little bit less clunky to build your metropolises. So the game plays a lot quicker. And a lot smoother. So I'm excited. To see how that pans out after years and years and years of having that time to redesign the game to be even better.
Cool. Well, I think that's enough talking about the latest status of the BGG Hotness List. So let's go on to our next segment, which for now we'll just say is the Crowdfunding Spotlight. I'm a big backer of board game crowdfunding projects and Kickstarters.
Don't say.
So one of my biggest pet peeves with like podcasts that do Kickstarter segments is they always say, oh, well, people don't like them because they're only relevant for a certain period of time. But I feel like a lot of these games eventually hit retail anyway. Or a lot of the games that are currently available retail now might go out of print in a few weeks or something and never come back to retail anyway ever again. So I think there's no reason why it's not worth touching on these types of on crowdfunding projects for that reason. And one that I guess I kind of had my interest piqued or reinvigorated after playing Moonrakers was this game called Solar Titans, which is a deck building space themed game for 1 to 4 players. And in this game, it's more of a combat oriented game where each player is managing in this game calls them Solar Titans, but essentially a giant spaceship that shoots. And the deck building part of the game is you trying to get better guns to equip your ship with and crew members to equip your ship with. And eventually you're going to be taking actions. I don't know exactly if it's via card play that you're acquiring or just by normal action in the game itself, but you'll eventually be shooting at the opposing Titan ship and they'll be shooting at you. And I assume depending on the damage you're taking, you might lose some of your abilities or your cards and vice versa. It just sounds like a very kind of novel way of taking the deck building mechanic and turning it into this tactical combat game. But what also caught my interest, as so often board games do, is it has a solo/cooperative mode included. So there's an AI deck that would allow you to play against a AI opponent, and then also there's a team play way to play this game where I guess 2 players are managing their own giant Solar Titan against another team of 2 with their own giant Solar Titan. So Will I back this? I feel like that's a rhetorical question. There is 7 days to go at the moment. It's only got 761 backers for a total of just $20,000, which relatively speaking is not a lot when it comes to, of course, Kickstarter games. As we know now, they can get into the millions, but seems kind of like a dark horse game. I don't know. I don't know if you guys read up much on this game or what your thoughts are, but basically it's kind of the game that I almost think I wish Moonrakers was, where it was just a little more the card. There was a little more theme to the game than what I experienced in Moonrakers.
Well, you can't say that yet till you play it, so we'll see. I do love deck building, so I'm going to mention the mechanic right away. Deck building, I'm a sucker for it. Hopefully it's good.
Hopefully it's in 5 to 10 years when we finally get it to the table.
well, 5 years when it finally arrives. And
right.
And then we have to wait a year or two before maybe, yeah. So
Right.
5 to 10 years. That's a good estimate. I also will quick touch on the games that at least I received from in the mail that I had kickstarted. One was called League of Dungeoneers, which is a giant dungeon crawling game that I backed probably over a year ago now. Finally arrived, and I have a big problem with these dungeon crawler games. I'm going to have to start actually limiting.
I thought you were going to say with Kickstarter and crowdfunding.
Well, they're almost synonymous because most of my games
no
that I'm
problem
making.
there. No problem there.
But anyway, it's a dungeon crawler game, if you couldn't pick up that from the name of the game. And the box is gigantic. It's kind of intimidating to look at, but we'll see if this gets played in the next 5 to 10 years. And yeah, I guess, did you guys have any crowdfunding games you saw that piqued your interest, or are you being smart and not even bother looking to avoid the temptation?
I've crowdfunded one game, and I'm pretty sure I will never receive it. So I've given up on caring or looking into that, and I can never have my hopes and dreams dashed again. So
I think that's important to mention too. Like throughout the years, I have backed a lot of games, but more so now, more recently, unless it's really really hot and being backed by a large dollar amount and a lot of backers, I typically shy away from it just for that reason that you may never see it. I know Hell, the Last Saga is kind of an anomaly because I think there was a lot of backers for that, but so it's kind of against what I'm saying here. But like Cyclades, for example, it's got a bunch of backers already, and other games that are more surface level and more games I'm already familiar with that maybe have like a deluxe upgrade to. I'm really interested in. Like I should have backed the Castles of Burgundy Deluxe Edition from Awakened Realms when that was going on, but I think that's obviously well past the point now. But yeah, certain things like that is more of what I look to now. I don't try to find the the dark horse anymore.
Yep. Yeah, from my experience, I'm starting to learn that waiting for it to get to retail generally is worth it. The Kickstarter, there's not generally a lot of Kickstarter exclusive stuff that you're going to get by backing it on Kickstarter. And at the end of the day, the biggest cost differential is the shipping. So the reality is, if you wait for it to go to retail and either A, get it from your friendly local game store, or B, just get it from Ministry's Market, you're going to pay no shipping. Whereas with these Kickstarter, the shipping rates, over the last few weeks, I'm finally getting all the crowdfunding sites telling me to pay for the shipping. And it's ridiculous amounts of money. It's like 30% of the game itself that I'm paying for shipping. And it's like, this seems dumb. Like, I'm not saying that these companies are overcharging me on the shipping, but at the same time, it's like to be paying $100 for a game and pay $40 then for the shipping, when if I just wait for it to go to retail and I could get it for like $90 without paying for shipping, it's just, there's really no reason to do the Kickstarter at that point, which I hate to say, because I know these companies are doing Kickstarters on it for a reason, but but yeah, I'm trying to reel in myself and only kickstart games where I logically can make a good case for or back, I should say, games that I know I won't be able to find easily elsewhere if I don't back the project. So with that said, let's move in to our next segment, which will be question of the week. And for this week's question, we'll kind of keep it rather simple, and that is, how do you normally buy your board games? And this is probably a good segue from what we were just talking about when it comes to crowdfunding. And for me, yeah, definitely crowdfunding is one major avenue that I utilize to acquire board games, whether it's Kickstarter or GameFound. Then I am one to utilize Miniature Market more than any other online site to buy games. I like the friendly local. I love the concept of friendly local game stores, but sometimes it's really difficult for me to justify the increased costs for the bigger games, especially. You know, little card game, okay, I save $5 by getting it online. Well, okay, I'll get it right at the friendly local game store. But but those more expensive games, that's where it's like, ugh, you know, yeah. I just know I'm burning money essentially. And I hate to say that, but that's something that I think about a lot. And then trying to find thrift store finds is another thing that I tried to take advantage of. Unfortunately, at least in our local metro Twin Cities area, I've not gotten a lot of luck out of going to Goodwill stores specifically for board games. I think they must be very good at understanding the value of high quality board games and like put them aside or something. But Cory, how do you normally go about buying your board games?
Yeah, for me, I'm really big on the secondhand market. So like our flea markets that we do, that sort of thing, really, really love those events. It's really fun to see all the people and just to get to, you know, walk from table to table and see what kind of games you can get and kind of wheel and deal, like you said, to get better deals on games. There's a lot of great older games out there, a lot of great games you can get used that are, you know, either neglected or, you know, whatever else that you can get for a great deal. So I definitely look for that. I'm really big on Facebook Marketplace for our local area here as well. You can get a lot of great deals on there. And I don't mind, you know, meeting somebody halfway to do that, spend a little bit of gas money to get a great deal on a couple games. So I definitely do that a lot. I used to do the whole, you know, online shopping sort of thing too. But more when I'm looking for a brand new game, I do tend to go to more of the friendly local game store. And I'll do a plug here for one of our local game stores, even though they're not sponsoring this, but if they do want to sponsor us, let us know if you're listening. But it is the Source Comics and Games right here in Minnesota. I go there a lot, and they're really good about actually backing a lot of the Kickstarter games. And I do have a card through them, a discount card where I get 10% off games also. So like you said, on some of those bigger games, yeah, sure, you're paying $20, $25 more, maybe $30 more, but you know, on a $100 game or $120 game, if I'm going to get $12 off anyway, yeah, I'm paying an extra 10 or 15 bucks to get it there. But at least by then, they're the ones who backed it. I get to do some research and watch, you know, reviews and read up on the game before I decide to purchase it, and then I go out and spend that extra $10 or $15 on it, knowing that I'm going to enjoy the game more than likely before I purchase it. And I feel like I'm saving a lot of money in that way instead of just backing 2 or 3 games, kind of shots in the dark, essentially. So I use our friendly local game store more for that now. Yeah,
I'm glad you brought up that point. I did see recently someone saying that some local game stores will even get the retailer pledge, and that if you can maybe pre-order it through them, through their retailer pledge, and then they will cover the shipping potentially. So then you can at least get rid of that shipping expense, which I was saying earlier is huge. And then you're supporting your local game store. So that's a great way also of leverage, trying to, you know, get a little bit of the best of both worlds is, you know,
well, having time to research the game is huge too. Yeah. So it gives you that time. Yep. So yeah, I appreciate that.
John, what about you?
I you know, like everything, I buy my games with money. Yeah. I don't really know what to say.
Cash.
Yeah.
Bitcoin.
I use credit card, and my credit card number is no, but in all seriousness, I'm kind of take a lazier approach. I do like going to game stores and perusing, and obviously if I find there that catches my eyes, definitely try to pick it up there. But 9 out of 10 times, I'm gonna think of a game randomly one day and be just like, I want that, and jump on Amazon and do the quick Prime, get it the next day, and move on with my life.
Yeah,
that's the way I roll, and I have an unfounded fear on buying used games. So everything I buy will be brand new.
Yeah, that's fair. If you've been burned once, it might be all that might be enough. Yeah, all
right,
it takes. I was gonna actually say
more recently. I was gonna say you have to buy directly from the publisher. So that's a new experience, right?
Oh, I didn't buy that.
No.
Oh.
I almost did. I've done that for other games.
Yeah,
a couple times.
I do want to throw out there that of all like items you can buy secondhand, I have to say board game secondhand purchases, from my experience, have always been in like very good condition. Like board gamers just genuinely typically seem to take very good care of their games, and yeah, I'm sure there's a couple bad apples or bad eggs out there, but I do want to.
Well, not well taken care of, you can physically see that it's not well taken care of before you buy it.
True. So, all right. With that said, if you have any questions you'd love for us to talk about in this segment, definitely put them in the comment section of the YouTube video. We don't know yet if there's like a comment section for when you have a podcast or how we're going to handle that. So, but at least for the YouTube video, we know there's a comment section, and we'd love to, talk about whatever it is you guys want us to talk about. So with that said, let's move into our kind of final segment for our podcast, and that's Talking Cardboard News. What is it that we have on our horizon here? So the first thing that's been in the fire for us for the last several months is trying to be involved with 2DCon later in August, which is a board game / video game convention located in Minneapolis at a hotel, and we hope to have a physical table there and allow anyone that wants to just talk to us about board games to have that opportunity, and then also trying to organize a board game panel to talk about the industry with influential members of the hobby that work at board game companies or stores, and so we're excited about that. Definitely sounds like a interesting convention in general. I've not really been to a non-board game convention before, and this one seems to definitely promote video gaming, so I'm excited to kind of see what that's like. With that said, yeah, anything, Cory or John, that you also wanted to bring up that we are trying to do in the future?
This is going to be... Oh, go ahead, Cory.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think mainly just kind of evolving the channel and coming up with more ideas, such as this podcast here, and posting this to the YouTube channel. So we are coming out with other fun ideas, and leave in the comments below if you have some fun segments or ideas for us that you'd like us to talk about as well. So this is kind of an ever-evolving thing that we're looking to explore more. And on top of that, other conventions, like Nick said, the 2DCon is one of them coming up here in August. And then we are looking to make Con of the North more of a regular local convention that we do every February. So we are more heavily involved in the behind the scenes with that now, and really trying to get industry leaders and store owners, and trying to run these panels at these different conventions to bring up some fun topics and just talk about board games in general. So I think that's kind of the direction we're headed at the moment.
Yeah, John, did you have something you want to mention?
Oh, yes, this is not a for sure thing, but obviously it will become reality at some point this year, but obviously we'll be doing our Extra Life charity event. Try to shoot for a 24-hour stream, but I think we've cut back on that a little bit in the past year or two. Right now, Extra Life is marketing their tabletop weekend as the weekend of August 18th through 20th. So maybe we'll be throwing it there. Otherwise, I know typically we do it later in the fall. But maybe the stars will align here where it just makes sense to do it when everyone else is.
Cool. Well, Great. That concludes Talking Cardboard news. So that brings us to the end of our inaugural podcast here. Thanks so much for listening. If you made it this far, hopefully you have. We appreciate your time and attention, or watching us if you found this on YouTube. Definitely, as we've probably said several times now, leave comments in the video on YouTube if with any ideas or suggestions of how we could improve this experience, or obviously if there was things you liked, we want to hear about that too. But most importantly, we just hope you continue to either listen or watch our content in the future. Like and subscribe and follow all of the different media outlets that we currently are active, which include YouTube, Twitter, TikToks. We have a Discord page. We'd love to have you part of our Discord community. And then we also have a Patreon, which we'd love for you if you decide to contribute to that, to help us really keep this this Talking Cardboard group going for the future for the future of our young children who hope to be playing board games in the next few years. With that said, thanks again, everyone. I'm Nick.
I'm Cory.
And I'm John.
And we are Talking Cardboard. Have a great rest of your day.